You're standing about 20 yards from a full-grown elephant. It's 3 times your height, heavier than a loaded delivery truck, and it just casually ripped a thorn tree apart like it was pulling up a weed. Then a small sound drifts down from somewhere in the branches above. Not a roar, not a gunshot, just a buzz, quieter than your doorbell. And that enormous animal, the one with almost nothing on the savanna that can actually kill it, turns and runs. Everyone assumes the thing elephants fear most is the lion, but a healthy adult elephant has almost no reason to be afraid of a lion at all. This is the story of why the largest land animal on Earth panics at an insect the size of a grain of rice, while mostly shrugging off the predator the entire planet crowned king of the jungle. Start with the lion, because this is where most of the confusion begins. A full-grown lion weighs under 200 kilograms. A full-grown African elephant can weigh 30 times that. Its hide is thick enough in places to blunt a spear. One kick can shatter a lion's spine in an instant. So for a lion doing the math on its next meal, going after an adult elephant isn't bravery, it's a losing energy trade. Enormous injury risk, almost zero chance of success. That's why researchers who study lion-elephant encounters across Africa describe a lion actually killing a healthy adult elephant as something close to unheard of. Adult elephants are, functionally, off the menu. And it's not just size doing the work. Elephants live in tight matriarchal herds, and when a threat shows up, the group doesn't scatter, it organizes. Adults form a loose ring facing outward, calves get pushed toward the center, and the whole formation can pivot and charge as one unit. A lion sizing up that arrangement isn't looking at one large animal, it's looking at several, all facing it, all capable of goring or trampling, all coordinated by a matriarch who has probably seen this exact standoff before. Ambitious, muscular, and outnumbered is not a combination that wins hunts. But wait, what about those YouTube clips of lions swarming an elephant that you've definitely seen? This is where the story gets its real texture. There are a handful of lion populations, most famously around Savuti in Botswana's Chobe National Park, that have learned an extremely rare hunting strategy, taking down elephants in large, coordinated prides, at night, during the harshest stretch of the dry season, when normal prey like buffalo and zebra thin out. But even there, the target is almost never a healthy adult in its prime. In one study, 7 out of 8 elephants killed were between 4 and 11 years old, animals recently weaned off their mothers, but still years from full adult size and strength. That's not a fair fight between two heavyweights. That's a very specific gap in an elephant's life cycle. Lions, in other words, aren't hunting elephants, they're hunting a window. Now flip to the bee, because this is where the whole picture turns upside down. In 2007, a zoologist named Lucy King, then a doctoral researcher working with the University of Oxford and the non-profit Save the Elephants in Kenya, published a study confirming something local communities had believed for generations. Elephants really are terrified of bees. Farmers in Kenya had already noticed that acacia trees hosting beehives, occupied or empty, took far less damage from foraging elephants than trees without hives. In Zimbabwe, elephants were seen carving new travel routes just to avoid wild hives entirely. So where's the actual vulnerability? Elephant hide is thick enough that it can stop a knife in some places, but there are exceptions. The skin around the eyes, behind the ears, around the mouth, and especially inside the trunk, where the tissue is thin, moist, and packed with nerve endings. There are documented accounts of an elephant getting a bee trapped inside its trunk and going into what witnesses describe as a near frenzy, thrashing violently to force it out. Not a minor sting you shake off. The kind of experience an animal famous for never forgetting isn't going to risk twice. It also helps to understand what the elephant is actually up against. African honeybees aren't the mellow, distracted insects you'd wave off a picnic table. They're famously defensive, quick to swarm in the hundreds when a hive gets jostled, and once they lock onto a target, they can chase it for a genuinely uncomfortable distance. A single elephant nudging a branch can accidentally trigger a response from an entire colony. Not one bee, not 10, but a cloud, all aiming for the same handful of soft, exposed spots at once. That's not a fair matchup, no matter how big you are. And here's the concept that carries the rest of this story. What researchers call the bee rumble. a specific low-frequency, near-infrasonic call elephants make while fleeing bees, paired with head shaking and dust kicking. In 2010, King's team played a recording of that exact rumble to 10 separate elephant families, with no actual bees present anywhere. 6 of the 10 families immediately moved away. When they played a different recording, similar in tone but missing the acoustic signature specific to the bee rumble, only 2 families bothered to leave. Elephants aren't just afraid of bees when they see them. They apparently have a specific vocabulary for warning each other about this exact threat, and the herd reacts to the sound alone, no visual confirmation required. This is also the point where the tidy version of the story starts to complicate itself. If lions are basically harmless to adult elephants, and bees trigger this whole sophisticated alarm system, why did it take until the early 2000s for anyone to formally study it? Part of the answer is that elephants and lions cross paths constantly, so an elephant's wariness around lions had already been normalized into the background. Alert, cautious, keeping distance but never full panic. Bee encounters, by contrast, are sudden, violent, and over in seconds, exactly the kind of event that's easy to miss unless you're specifically looking for it. Which leads to a practical use for all of this that you probably didn't see coming. Kenyan farmers, tired of losing entire harvests to elephants raiding fields at night, now build what's called a beehive fence. Real, occupied hives, strung together on wire around the perimeter of a farm. An elephant brushes the wire, the hives swing and rattle, and that's it. The herd turns around. A 9-year study published in 2024 tracked 26 farms near Tsavo East National Park in Kenya, logging nearly 4,000 elephant approaches across 6 peak growing seasons between 2014 and 2020. The result? Beehive fences successfully deterred 86.3% of elephants during the seasons when crops were at their most tempting. Averaged across every season, including a severe drought year that knocked down hive occupancy by 75%, the fences still held elephants back 76% of the time. 76%. From an insect that weighs a fraction of a gram. Here's the catch, though, worth being honest about. Not every elephant fears bees equally, and the fear isn't fixed forever. Elephants are famously smart, and if the payoff is big enough, a field of ripe corn during a drought, some individuals gradually learn to push through more cautiously, or even ignore the warning signal if the actual threat doesn't materialize fast enough. That's exactly why researchers keep monitoring and adjusting these fences, instead of just installing them once and walking away. What about calves? This is the second layer of nuance. The thick hide that protects adult elephants from stings takes time to develop fully. Researchers still aren't certain whether a young calf's skin is developed enough to withstand a sting the way an adult's can. That uncertainty may be exactly why mother elephants, even ones that have more or less adapted to routine bee encounters themselves, stay intensely cautious about letting a calf anywhere near a wild hive. So here's the actual, honest shape of the risk an adult elephant carries around. 3 completely different layers. From an ordinary lion, essentially none. From the rare, specialized lion prides like the ones at Savuti, risk concentrated into a narrow age window, during one season, in a handful of specific ecosystems. From bees, risk that's present year-round, anywhere a wild hive exists, aimed directly at the one set of weak points that size and muscle can't defend. That's why calling elephants more afraid of bees than lions isn't an exaggeration for effect. It's an accurate description of a risk calculation the animal itself, across thousands of years of evolution, has encoded into a specific alarm call, an immediate flight reflex, and a wariness passed down from mother to calf. Enormous size, raw muscle, a specialized infrasonic alarm system built for different threats. 3 layers of defense evolution handed this animal. None of them do a thing when the threat weighs less than a grain of rice and is already inside the trunk. So next time someone tells you the lion is an elephant's worst nightmare, you can tell them about Tsavo instead, about wires that rattle when brushed by a trunk, about an animal that can knock over a tree without breaking stride, but still turns and runs from a buzz, from the one enemy it will never, unlike the lion, get a chance to fight back against.